Hi everyone, this is Jeannie and I'm with Divorce But Not Devalued group, and I want to introduce to you Kelly. She's amazing. How do you say your last name? I should know better.
Barth- Barthelemy. Barthelemy. It's like Bartholomew, but
Barthelemy. Oh my gosh. So I love Kelly because she is definitely someone you hope to be blessed to have her in your life. She is real. She is just very loving, and I love how much she is young, but she's had a lot to talk about. And one of the themes we're going to focus on is her divorce experiences. So I wanted her to share with you guys what she's experienced in divorce and her story. So tell us a little bit about how you experienced the divorce thing.
yeah. Well, unfortunately for me, and for the benefit of your audience, my experience with divorce is not limited to one occasion. There's been multiple divorces in my past, and so I'll kind of walk through quickly how they happened. So I got pregnant out of wedlock when I was 19, and my son's father asked me to marry him when I was 8 months pregnant, and being 19 and so scared of the future and not sure how I was going to be a single parent, I said yes. I still to this day blame the pregnancy hormones for saying yes to that. But and that's lesson number one. I actually almost called off that wedding. So then my son was born and we were planning the wedding, and I saw some real serious red flags. And I thought to call it off about 6 weeks before the wedding, but invitations had gone out, all this money had been spent, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. And in hindsight, if I would have made that decision then, it would have saved a lot of people a lot of heartache. But he was really abusive and a drug addict, and was stealing money and punching holes in the wall, and just kind of your worst nightmare. So we were only married a little over a year. He was physically abusive, and for me, he was physically abusive with my son. And that was the straw for me, that I was like, I need to get out of this situation. So I filed for divorce in that case and ended the marriage. And, within a year from that, met the nicest guy, just the nicest guy. And he was a police officer, and he was kind, and he, knew the Lord. And so I was like, great, this is a great, safe, guy that'll be great for my son. And, I didn't think I would get hurt. I just thought in a million years he wouldn't be able to hurt me. And so the equation, the analogy I always use with that is that I was married to a rambler, and I knew the rambler was wrong. So then I saw a second story, and I'm like, oh, it's not a rambler, it must be right, And so I married the second story without realizing that the kitchen was in the basement and the garage was out back. Yes, it was a second story, and yes, it was different, but it still wasn't the right house for me. And we were married for 5 years, and he ended up leaving. He ended up just honestly not being able to hang. I had some health issues, and it just got to be too much for him, and he left. And that was devastating. So here I was, I wasn't even 30 years old, and I was divorced twice. That was a huge pill to swallow. I thought that guy would never leave me, and he did. And I had a daughter with him. So here I had 2 kids, 2 failed marriages, a single mom just trying to figure it out, and ran around and did the whole dating thing, went on Match, and was like, oh, there are guys who will buy me dinner every day of the week. This is a lot of fun, So I did that. Honest, real talk, I just nothing but real talk. So that's what I did. And had several failed relationships, just kind of saw what was out there in the train wreck that it was. And then for me personally, at age 30, I came to faith. Like, I met Jesus and I came to faith, and that was a huge defining moment. And actually part of me coming to faith was bad relationship. And I just was like, Jesus, I'm so sick of these men. Like, you just need to be the man of my life. I can't do it anymore. So I came to faith, and wouldn't you know, the very next month, I meet this man who is the professed Christian and knows the Bible forwards and backwards, and is, this lawyer, this Brazilian, beautiful lawyer who loves God and knows all these things. And I just quickly interpreted that must have been a reward from heaven. Like, oh, okay, Jesus, I made you my man, so now you sent me this amazing gift of a man. And it was a whirlwind of a courtship. He didn't even propose. He just started saying marriage vows to me. Because at this point I was like, oh no, I'm a Christian now. I'm not going to do the whole sex before marriage. You know, like I didn't know what it meant to court. I had no idea, no context for that because I was such a new Christian, but I knew that sex was part of it, that you that you were not supposed to have sex until you got married. And so I had said I wasn't going to do that. And so within a month, he impromptu tells me his wedding vows and all this stuff. And I found myself repeating them back without really thinking. And then we quickly consummated the marriage after that. And I remember waking up the next morning like, what have I just done? But I had made a commitment. I had made a covenant to him and to the Lord. And so for me, those marriage vows I took very seriously. We ended up, getting it done legally shortly thereafter, and like whirlwind through families together, stepkids, the whole thing. Only to find out that he had a real serious sex addiction and had multiple, was very promiscuous before we got together, and is the only time in my life where I was a drug, I was a drug to him. It's very weird to be the thing that somebody can't get enough of. And no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried to like be everything to him, I just couldn't, because I know now any kind of addiction, you're trying to fill a hole that only God can fill. So it's not meant for any person to do it. So, so he threatened cheating, threatened leaving, he just was not happy, and he'd leave and come back. And it was very tumultuous, probably a year and a half of back and forth. We separated, we were seeking counseling. And the whole time I was like, wait, Christians don't get divorced. Like, I have God in the situation now. This should have a different outcome. And I just was believing and trusting and praying and standing in faith. And I thought for sure we're going to be together the rest of our lives. This is going to be a ministry. We're going to help other, couples that are struggling. And it just didn't turn out that way. Like I learned in that relationship the hard truth of that man has free will, and not even God will violate free will. And as painful as it was, he, decided to leave and filed for divorce. And that was that. I wish I could say that as the end of my divorce story, but it isn't. I did, then again, so on the heels of that, I was like, okay, clearly I don't know how to pick. Clearly I'm just done with men, or I don't know how to pick. And so I, probably another year. So that's tip number one. Tip number one is if you're divorced, wait a year before you even contemplate. There should be 1 year just cooling off time before you even contemplate talking to someone. Second tip is when you meet someone and even consider them for a courtship thing, get to know them for a year before marriage is part of the equation. Because I like to say you need to see people in the summer, fall, winter, spring. You need to see them when they're sick. You need to see them in traffic. You need to see them with their family. You need to see them in all kinds of settings to truly know who a person is. But so anyways, I'm like, I just don't know how to pick men. So I was involved in a church and got to know a guy in my church, just super. I wasn't attracted to him. He wasn't my type. He wasn't a guy that I would ever see myself with, but I was so convinced that I didn't have the ability to pick that I was like, well, maybe I should pick someone that I would never pick. Like, this is how broken my thinking was. And I did pray about it. And I asked for counsel in the church, and this man ended up telling me he had all these feelings for me and wanted to, take care of everything and my kids and whatever. And so I kind of swung the opposite way and didn't use my own logic or reasoning. I was convinced that I was so broken that, anyways. So same kind of thing, like it kind of was a whirlwind and it happened fast. And before I knew it, I was married to this man who was in the church and is a Christian. I'm not even gonna say he is a Christian. But similarly, after I got in the marriage, just realized there was alcoholism going on and addiction and hidden things. There were debts I didn't know about, criminal history I didn't know about. He had not been paying taxes or his mortgage for several years somehow. And it just was one thing after another after another. And so I did, sought counsel. We went to pastors. I tried for that marriage and believed for that marriage and prayed and waited for breakthrough. And 3 years, it lasted 3 years, and that ended up in divorce as well. So yeah, I have I'm 41 years old. I have 4 divorces under my belt. So it's a lot. And what I'm sharing with you right now, like I don't share with a lot of people. It's the thing that I most in my life is the hardest for me to share. And the enemy comes at me with shame and embarrassment about it because um I have been, I have failed multiple times in that arena of my life. And it's not only humbling and embarrassing, but it also, like, I know the price that I have paid personally and the price that my kids and my family has paid by so many, failed relationships. It's a high price. It's not without cost that I've been through all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it is super hard to walk through one divorce, let alone four. I mean, and with two children. I mean, that's it's a big deal, especially you try to do it with the church and counseling, and you were very much aware that God needed to be in it, but then we go ahead and make that, because I think it's key that you said that God will, it's a choice. He, if we don't get him in the equation, he'll let us go through it. He will let us walk through it, walk through the pain, to then come around and say, okay, God, that's it. You got it. I know I'm supposed to focus on you. I take that tip, you said wait a year, after divorce, and then wait to know someone for a whole year. But there was something else I was thinking about when you were saying that, because you could be with someone for a whole year and not really still get to know him. Like, I think that it's important to see their relationship with Jesus. Like, how are they relating to him?
Yeah.
Are they looking for you for the answers? Are they looking for him for the answers? Because
Yeah.
same with us. For me, like, I mean, don't you find, like, I wanted to have someone to rescue me and be my provider. I mean, my everything, right? And no man can do that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, what was your feeling? I mean, like, what do you find that you could have done better? Like, was it? I mean,
Right.
or what are you thinking?
Well, I think especially when you've had more than one, but even with one, you start to feel like you're soiled goods. Like you have this scarlet letter on you. And I know for me, it's like, well, what man would want to marry me? And then for sure after two, and then after three, like I would dread when I had any kind of relationship, I would so dread having that conversation to tell them that, like, if they accepted it and accepted me, I would stay with them even if there were other issues, because I so dreaded having to tell that to somebody else. Like, that alone would keep me in the relationship. And so just to lie that you're not acceptable or pleasing to other people, or that nobody's going to want you, like, that alone would have saved me. Because honestly, with each one, it got incrementally worse. That, like, well, who is going to marry me after I've had so many, failed relationships? And so really, like, anybody, it was like Joe Blow could have walked in, and but the fact that he accepted it was enough. Like, my bar was only that high. And so for somebody to take the time and do the work to get wholly healed, that no matter what their story is, no matter how many divorces there are, that they can say, like, yes, this is my story, and I'm still amazing, and I'm still a catch, and I'm still, like, a value to whatever man is lucky enough to have me. I remember I dated a guy who made some kind of comment about, oh, well, I could be number 5. And I said, you should be so lucky to be number 5.
Yeah.
Wish you could be number 5, because number 5 is blessed and highly favored and gets to spend the rest, he gets the best version of me that there's ever been, and he gets the benefit of all of those lessons learned through that heartache. And you have to really have that posture, otherwise you're going to end up coming from a place of desperation and, like, oh, you have to get this man because who else would want you? And so that would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I think that's what we want. We want someone to come and put out the fire. Like, we made this, one failed marriage, another one, and we just, like, oh my God, we're getting older. Time is ticking. We are, just use goods, and we're thinking, okay, one more. It's like, if I can beat the statistics, because I know that this could be the one, and
Right.
we're just putting all our eggs into a very equally broken person, because who we meet is like exactly a reflection of where you are,
Right.
the hard work that you've done. Because I mean, my second one, I thought about, okay, he's a Christian, and then what? I mean, it was like he was just that on paper. He didn't have any
Right.
relationship with Jesus. He wasn't seeking him for when the problems come, because problems will come. We're not perfect, right? And we
Right.
expect this person to be fulfilling all our needs, and they are looking the same thing.
Yeah, so that's the point. Like, if you're not to a if you feel like a husband is the answer for you, if you can't feel whole, complete, and like perfectly happy with your life, and without a husband, then you're going to attract someone who feels that same way. And now you guys are attempting to be that thing for each other that only God can be, and that's a recipe for disaster, no matter who it is, you know. And so to just keep in mind, I'm married now, so I can, you know, being married, I don't want to say the grass is always greener. The point is, there are good parts and bad parts. There are things that you have to sacrifice in both cases. So to not despise the season you're in and be longing for or waiting for the next season or a marriage, like to not postpone your joy for marriage, but to find the joy in exactly where you are. Find the joy in the things that you can only do when you're single. And so, speaking as a currently married woman, enjoy the fact that like your house is exactly as clean or as dirty as you made it. And you can clean it up when you decide you want to clean it up. That when you turn on the TV, it's exactly what you want to watch for as exactly long as you want to watch. You know what I mean? That you're, you know, I'm recently remarried again, and like sports invaded my house again. And I was like, oh yeah, there's this thing called sports. Like we, you know, I had enjoyed with my daughter, like peace and quiet and chick flicks if we wanted to watch a movie or whatever. So, and not that those are huge things to pay, but there are gifts hidden within singleness.
Yes.
Learn to identify them and embrace them, and just really embrace the season that you're in. When you get so caught up in the season you're in and building like your amazing life and being appreciative for it, that's when God can bring you someone to complement you, and you'll love your life so much by yourself that you won't compromise or forsake your life. It will need to be someone who is going the same direction as you, because you'll love your life so much that you don't just want to get absorbed in, you're not looking to get absorbed into a man's life. You're looking for that man that's going to run alongside you, or, you know, better yet, lead you and be a true, you know, benefit in addition to your life. So that's my hope and prayer for everybody watching. And that's what's available for everybody watching. That is absolutely available.
And I love that you brought that up, because that is key, you know, to focus on what God has put in you, and you focus on that. You start taking the focus off a man, and then you ask God, what is it that I have to contribute? You know, what makes Kelly, right? And
Right.
he's gotten you in this journey that I totally love. Like, I want you to tell the girls what you do as well, because I think that I mean, I believe in you, and I am so proud of you. I just thank you for sharing your divorce story, but there's more to you because of all the pain that you've gone through.
Yeah.
More to it than that, that God is giving you such a gift to now, again, you know, your focus is not just your marriage. Of course, that's, you know, you're a whole person now, and that allows you to, you know, keep moving, and he has joined you in your mission. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing that women can do with divorce. It's so easy when a divorce happens or anything devastating to your life. Like when anything happens that it wasn't what you hoped or expected, it has the opportunity to shipwreck you, or it has the opportunity to make you stronger. And so, yes, I've been through these 4 divorces, and it's crazy and gnarly. And I also have filed bankruptcy, and I've had cancer 2 times. I've had all this stuff happen to me. And culminating in, I lost my mom to suicide, and then my son to overdose like a year and a half later. So all those things leading up to that had kind of prepared is the wrong word, but it's like I got stronger and more able to deal with adversity. So for the women that, like, if a divorce has happened to you and it's the worst thing that's happened to you and you don't know how you're going to get over it, understand that it's serving a purpose. Like, understand that if you'll let it, it's making you a stronger, more self-aware, more like just awesome version of yourself. And when you look through it through that lens, then you don't need to despise it. You don't need to be embarrassed of it. It was something that happened in your life that God's going to use to make you better, to make you more able to receive all that he has for you. And so for me, these two huge losses in my life, losing my mom and my son, I've applied that same, concept and principle. And so now I work with people who've experienced grief, but specifically grief of loss of a loved one. Like, how do you recover from that? How do you embrace it and lean into it and like harness out exactly what you're doing with the divorced ladies? Like, how do you find the gifts and treasures and lessons in this hardship and move forward in a way that's meaningful and full of joy and full of purpose and, having your best life? And so that's what I do over at Unstuck Life, is help people to do that. And I'm doing things now and living a life I couldn't ever imagine. And there's no way I would be here without all the adversity that I've faced, without all the hardship and all the whatever. And so while I wish a lot of it didn't happen, like I'm so thankful that I am where I am. So I can be grateful for it in that context.
Yes, and I'm going to be dropping her link down below. So if you want to get in touch with Kelli, I highly recommend it, because she's been a blessing to my life. And I know that, God doesn't, he doesn't do these things to us. He just allow us to go through the wilderness. So we know that he's crazy about us and that we are so loved and we're pursued and we're chosen for a higher calling that we don't get to see. We're like, oh, why this is happening? Why it's not? Well, why it's not happening to me? Look at all the stuff that Jesus had to walk through. So then he can be resurrected. So that's, he's definitely knows best.
Yeah, for sure. And he doesn't cause those things to happen. And even the sovereignty of him allowing, the reason you go through tough times is because other people make bad choices and you make bad choices. I think that's the other thing too. If people can get real with themselves and own the part that they played, I don't care who you're married to. I don't care how awful the situation was. The point is, you said yes, you walked down the aisle and you did it. So until you can get real with yourself and go look at and unpack, where should I have not said yes? Where were the red flags? How can I make sure not to do this in the future? But if you will commit and submit yourself to the Lord and making decisions his way, that's when Romans 8:28 kicks in, that he works all things for the good of those called according to his purposes. So even if people make choices that are contrary to his will, God then is faithful to use those things to bless you. And that's what you can stand on. That's the promise that you can stand on once your decisions are submitted under him. So it's medicine to swallow, but it's medicine for sure, and it'll make you a better version of yourself. So that's just a hard thing we all need to do.
Yeah, and the realization that it's not about us. It's not about us. We're always thinking about me. What can I get out of this? And it's not. It's all about him. So,
so true.
One last word of wisdom. What would you?
Last word of wisdom. I mean, the thing that I say with folks I work with all the time is to just be intentional, to move forward on purpose, in purpose. That you have to be intentional. If you don't take intentional steps, you're going to stay stuck exactly where you are. So you need to be intentional to move forward, and then don't move forward haphazardly. Move forward in purpose. Get a vision for where you're trying to go and make sure the steps you're taking, the people you're surrounding yourself with, the instruction you're getting is all moving you in that direction. And I know Jeannie is great for that. Jeannie is the best cheerleader I've ever met. She's a source of sunshine in my life. And so surrounding yourself with people who are farther down the path and can encourage you, support you, correct you, convict you, that you can be open to receive that, to make sure that you don't make the same mistake again, that you end up in a better place.
Yes, it's priceless. You're priceless. Don't go. I'm just going to close it up, and I just can't wait to hear how much of a blessing you are to many people. And I love you.
Love you too.